gal.
Hey, babe. We're back. Episode 3.
Yay.
Right? Hey, really quick, though, before we get too far down the path of introducing the show, back to laundry.
Oh, geez.
I can't tell you, and I appreciate everything you do in this house. I love you, and everything's great.
Yeah.
You have to understand the complications associated with having 3 different stain remover things. One looks like detergent, one's powder, one's a spray. Now, for me, the powder, right? Great, because it says Oxy on there. I know it's for stain. Spray, same thing. Hey, you spray this on the shit to remove the stain.
Yeah.
The bottle that looks exactly like there's just detergent in it that you squirt out. You see where that would be problematic for me, correct?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
So we have the OxyClean, like the powder.
Okay.
For just like general wash. I normally only use that with the kids' laundry.
Okay.
For the spray, it is like a Target, a Target spray something.
Sure.
And the soap dispenser bottle with like the pump that has stuff in it is like a homemade mixture of a stain remover, but I use it on like oil or grease stains. So Seamus's football uniform for the grass, for the Tegan's shirts when she comes home from school and she's got food all over it. Like they have a purpose.
You understand though
But we have a powdered laundry detergent now because I decided at Costco to save like $3.
Right.
And buy the powder instead of the pod thingies that
I appreciate you thinking of the bottom line.
Rowan, I probably will never do this again.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you see though, when you have all that set out, and if I'm throwing in laundry, you asked me to throw in the laundry where
I didn't ask you to throw in the laundry.
Well, I said, I'm going to throw in my pajamas that I love from
right.
Target.
And then I said,
Christmas
well, if you're
pajamas.
going to put one thing in the wash, at least put all of it in the wash.
So you then assign me the responsibility of doing the laundry.
Okay. Fine. I admit that.
Fair.
Yes. Fair.
Okay. So from that point on, there's just those 3 things up there. I guess I missed the pods.
We don't have the pods.
Okay. So I just didn't see that there was laundry detergent at all.
It's in the container on top of the dryer next to the scent beads that I use in our bedding and our towels.
Okay. I accept responsibility on this, but could we label
There's a
them somehow?
method to laundry.
No, I know there is. And I want to be a part of it. That's what I'm saying. Like you acted hurt and concerned and confused, but I think it is very logical how I might have fucked up the 3 stain remover system that you've got going and confusing that with something that looks exactly like detergent. I mean, it looked exactly like Tide. Exactly like Tide.
Okay, I'm sorry. We don't.
No, you don't need to be
use
sorry.
Tide.
No, I know. See, but doesn't liquid detergent look like liquid detergent? Liquid detergent looks like liquid detergent. It's a bluish, purplish, hazy detergent, right?
Honestly, I don't know. I think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll get better. I promise. I brought Shame to the dojo. The comfort didn't smell well. Now we have to redo it. I apologize for that. If anybody needs to apologize, it's me. I just was trying to point out we have some problems here. Maybe we label those things going forward. Just for me, make it idiot proof.
I love a good label.
Okay, see, there you go. We got a label. You got a label machine. So let's use that thing, right?
Out of the thingies. And it's not pretty. It doesn't do like the fun labels. It just does like basic labels.
Sure. That makes sense. But anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in to the show. Episode 2 launched a little over a week ago. We got a lot of positive feedback. Even got some feedback from Scooters. Got a message from Scooters saying that they were listening to it internally. So shout out to Scooters, and glad that they took our positivity about how much we enjoy getting coffee around the city.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been great, and appreciate everybody for listening to the show. We got a great show today. Going to be very specific on our topics in regards to, our last couple shows were pretty long. Want to more focus on things that are happening right now. Most of our family is talking about it. I'm sure most people are talking about it. Seems like the whole world's talking about it, which is that United Healthcare CEO recently passed away from being shot. They had just, as of the other day, yesterday, I believe, got the gunman. So I definitely want to dive into that and talk about, obviously every marriage, every couple that's married, any couple in general, any individual, and then anybody who has children deals with our healthcare system. I think it is important to talk about it, talk about the events that led up to it.
There's not a single person in the world that doesn't deal with healthcare in some aspect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I want to dive into that, kind of give an overview, just in case. I assume there's people that, like myself, didn't know kind of all the details about everything that had happened and kind of overview what events led up to it. The information they found from the alleged gunman after they had arrested him. And then, of course, just some basic information on United Healthcare in general and what may have led up to that as well. And then kind of just talk through all of that. But first, we have, for the first time ever on Do We Have To, we have our question. So we were submitted a question to our website. The person wanted to remain anonymous. She wanted to remain anonymous. Maybe I shouldn't have said gender. It doesn't matter. But anyway, we did get a question. I do want to dive into that today. So we'll have those segments, and of course we'll come back with other episodes. We're planning on doing one on our wonderful on the Bridgerton sex scandal that I keep talking about, and we're gonna have its own dedicated episode.
It's not even a scandal.
It is going to be an expose, and we're going to dive into this deeply, and we're going to figure it all out together with the audience.
Okay.
And then, of course, we will have our book club episode where we're going to be reviewing Dark Matter, and we're also going to be fitting in our Emily's coffee, emotional support coffee of the episode or of this time on Do We Have To? Got one every day. Which is going to be Renegade Coffee, right?
Yeah.
Which is located off of North Oak. We've been doing multiple North Oaks that have locations. I guess it's a big ass road that has a lot of coffee shops.
I was going to say, it's one of the longest ones in Kansas City, I think.
It is. It does go, pretty much
from downtown all the way to the Northland
area. Yeah. Good point. Very good point. So, So with that being said, obviously this is Do We Have To, a marriage podcast. I am your host, Sean.
I'm Emily.
And our executive producer is Colin Maskell. So thank you everybody for joining us today. But let's get started with, I'm gonna pick up the paper. So forgive me for since we're actually recording today, but I want to be able to actually do this justice and read it out exactly as it was written rather than paraphrase. Okay.
Yeah.
So when it was submitted to us, we don't cross-check emails or anything of that nature. We'll never will. If you don't want us to ever have to actually report who's saying it, just let us know. We'll be anonymous, want to be respectful of this. And I'm excited about this, even though this is
we won't
a harsher
say the
topic.
Email in general.
It's a fake email.
No, I know it's a fake email, but we don't need to say that it's.
Oh yeah. We wouldn't just give out an email anyway. Yeah. But even if you don't want your name mentioned, anything of that nature, we can always keep it anonymous, but we really do appreciate this question. It is pretty
it's a heavy
deep one. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So this is from Jane Doe. Message. Okay. So I'm completely miserable in my marriage, and we've tried counseling many times. It's getting to the point of so much hate and resentment towards him that I don't know how much longer I can live with him. It is so hard because we have 2 kids together, and the other major problem is neither of us have enough money to move out on our own. What does everyone do in this situation? So it's kind of a question to us and audience in general, but that's a heavy question. And the reason is just because I think a lot of marriages probably can relate to it, because there's probably a point in their marriage where you're not getting along, and it would be probably looking at it as just a selfish individual would be very, very easy to just say, I'm done with this. Right. Yeah. I feel like I'd be lying if I said I know I've been there where it's just like, this is not working for me.
Right.
But that's just me focusing solely on me as an individual before we get into having kids, having a mortgage together, etc. Have you been there with me? Have you been there with me?
Absolutely. But I've never gotten as far as to use the word hate.
Sure.
I think that's a really big one.
Yeah.
Sometimes I almost think it would have made the decision easier to leave if I hated you. But I love you. That's why I work through the things that I work through. But I would say to this individual, marriage counseling is one thing, but individual counseling as well as marriage counseling is another. And I think one of the best things that we've ever done was separate ourselves. We did individual counseling, and then we came together for marriage counseling.
We kind of did both overlapped. I mean, it wasn't.
We did, it wasn't like
when we were
I worked on myself, you worked on yourself, and then we worked on our marriage. It was Emily had a session, Sean had a session, then we had a session together. Like we did all of it together. Yeah,
and just layered in like a sandwich.
Absolutely.
I mean, essentially, yeah.
Because everything that I'm going through as an individual will affect my marriage. And that plays on it, and it goes back and forth. And I think that that's really important to realize. You can't ever truly be happy with another person until you're happy with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's a big thing.
The things that you are resenting, you need to address. You need to put it out there, and you need to decide, can I move past it? Can I forgive it? Or is this the boundary that I can't go past? And one thing therapy, I think, helped both of us was create our individual boundaries.
Yes.
And we didn't have that when we first got married.
Yeah.
And then when we created an individual boundary,
we didn't know how to, I don't think we knew even how to
communicate,
start doing that.
Right.
You know,
absolutely.
boundaries. I mean, yeah, let alone communication, but just
Absolutely.
actually why we are communicating, having a healthy, not just a boundary. There's difference, right?
Absolutely.
Having a healthy boundary in place, and how you even establish that, and what is a healthy boundary for you versus me is all based off our own individual experiences, which you then have to figure that out during individual therapy.
Yes. Because I think it is so easy to throw in the towel and get divorced. I think divorce would be so easy to do. However, you have to waking up and choosing to be your spouse, like your wife every day, is a choice that I make every morning.
And I'm sure it's work.
And it is work, but that's the part of marriage that nobody ever really talks about.
That is marriage.
Marriage,
that's the
I think
reality
being
of
a
marriage.
spouse is harder than being a parent.
Yes.
I think there is so much that goes into it. Financially, I don't even think you and I could ever really afford to get separated. It is.
See, that's where that is one thing. It's problematic when I hear that, because what it concerns me is that, yeah, could you move out and have your own space in your own life? Well, no, probably not. But that being like where you keep things as they are isn't a good answer either. So
because the children are the one who suffer from that.
Potentially. It just depends on how. Here's the thing. It's easy to sit here from our chair when we've been through it and kind of what works for us, what doesn't. But like what I would say to the lady that sent this in is that, you have to right now you have to assess outside of yourself, between you and your spouse, are you causing harm? Like I assume the kids are picking up on what's going on. How are you interacting with each other? How does that cause you to interact with your kids? Well, they mentioned kids. So either way, I mean, kids are insanely intuitive unless they're babies, but like I assume there's probably enough time of development that they at least know something's going on. They're picking something up. So right away, to me, you have to separate out the individual scenarios that are happening and have to figure out initially how to co-parent. And to your point, it probably is going to take counseling to do that. That would probably be my first initial thing to work on, and then to work from there, continue working on the relationship and figure out, because it's so easy.
If you want to put if you decide that based on the boundaries that you set and what the problems are worth getting past, then work on the relationship. But first and foremost, I kind of agree with you. Yes, work on how to be a co-parent, because if you can at least take yourself out of it
and find common ground where you guys can figure that out together.
Focus on the kids and make sure that they are healthy and happy and in a environment where they can thrive
with each other. Yes.
Or else that cycle just continues.
Well, and you can build the foundation from there. If you want to continue working on the relationship at that point, you have a base of positivity, because I think when I hear the word hate, it's not wrong to say it. It's fine to say it. I just think we live in a society where it's so easy to say that. It's just as easy as to say, I love you. It's not that these emotions aren't correct, but you're associating the word with emotions that doesn't necessarily mean finality. Mm-hmm. When hate to me seems like there's finality to that.
Right.
You just don't like the motherfucker right now. And I get it.
In that, I don't think we've ever been as far.
I've never hated you.
I've never hated you.
I have been upset with you. I thought this isn't going to work out because we're not going to figure it out.
Right.
And there's been decisions that we've made that I have put the onus on you, where I'm like, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, which is unfair because it takes two of us. But I think that, to me, I think what I'm hearing is resentment and the inability to communicate, not if this person blew up tomorrow, I would just walk away and never have any feelings of it, or I'd be happy about it. To me, that's hate, right?
Right. Yeah.
You want something, to me, hate is like, you want something bad to happen to that person. You're almost caught up on it, or you're focused or fixated on it. If that's not the case here, I would say you don't hate the person, which is great. That's a good first stepping point to what does co-parenting look like? And then do we have a decision together? Let's figure that out. And a lot of time having a third the reason why I say therapy, it's not because just the therapy, it's the fact that you have an unbiased third party that's sitting there listening to you and can help you meet in the middle. Right. Holy shit. That is the biggest thing. Being able to work on yourself and work through your issues. Cause I guarantee you, if you're here, and nobody's doesn't have individual issues, but if you're here, it probably means there's some things we really need to look at. Yeah. I know that for me. You know what I mean? Like you go through these things and you have undiagnosed mental health issues, and then you have trauma and things that it's not because you don't want to work on them. It's just, you're in a world that is not an easy path. Right. So you've kind of got to nobody's coming to save you. You got to figure that out yourself. Right. So yeah, no, with that being said, I think to your point, I think the best thing, if it were you and I, and now knowing what we know, if I were sitting here with that person, or if I were just talking through it and we were dealing with it, it would be figuring out, how do we make sure that we're creating the best environment for the kids? Right. And does that mean, holy shit. One of the things I loved about that Kelsey Brothers documentary, with us being Kansas City based podcast, obviously we're going to talk about Kelsey Brothers, but there's meaning to it. I know. Their parents wanted to not be together. Right. And on that interview, when they interview in that documentary, they adamantly say, hey, it'd be a lot easier if we just weren't together. But we knew that would be a logistical nightmare and it wouldn't be good for the kids. Mm-hmm. So they figured out, in living in their own house where they don't even sleep in each other's room, that might not look good initially. But look, did you hear about how they talked about it? It doesn't
matter what it looks like to the outside. It's what works best for you and your family.
Well, right. But I also think there's just the natural societal push of, like, if you're married, you're in your own room, or you're in a room together. If you're married, you're supposed to be together. Whereas, like, that might not be working right now. And what the most positive thing is for you and your family may be your roommates in the house, but you're also together as parents. Right. And the kids, as long as they feel safe and in a constructive environment, that's what they feed off of. It's not looking at a societal norm. Right. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I always have such admiration for that, because you just don't hear that type of story often. They did that for years. Right. Right. So yeah, that would be my recommendation on it. I do think that it sounds like to me, there's, even though you feel trapped, and I think that maybe makes it worse too, that you feel trapped, so you can't really truly do what you want to do. Which is why I recommend individual counseling. Definitely. Individual counseling is what, if you and I were in there, I'd say we need to do couples counseling and figure out a base of that needs to be also how do we co-parent together, and then also how we work in our relationship. We need to tackle that in two different lanes. Right. But it's one of those things where it's almost more of the attitude you have and you bring into it is going to be the defining point of where it goes. Because if you take it in where you expect the other person to adhere to listening to you and then kind of meet you, and you don't have that same attitude, we wouldn't be successful if we didn't figure that out. It's not that we were that every day, right? But that's where I think we had our most success, is when we figured that out. Yeah. The only other thing I would ever add is, if you are of a faith-based life, to pray for your spouse. There is not a day that goes by that I don't say a prayer specifically for you, and then one for our marriage and one for our children. There's a ton of great resources, a lot of great little blogs and podcasts and things where they have like daily prayers for your spouse or daily prayers for your kids. And so I think, if you're of faith, the power of prayer really does help change your outlook and like your ability to look at things differently, and so. I love that about you. I think that's fantastic. I love that we have that balance, because I don't do that. My thing is I'm a little bit different. Like I try to internally push myself to remind internally push myself to be ever present always with the bigger picture. The bigger picture is like, today could be our last day together. Is whatever we're talking about or whatever we're doing, like we talked about last time we were in bed. I was asking you, like, you know, I just turned 40, you know, and for some reason, like, it's just, and it's not anxiety and it's not depression. It's none of those things. Like, it is just the thought of dying and the fact that there is going to be a point in time, you know, an average male lives till they're 72 right now or 73 roughly in the United States. And given our healthcare system we're going to talk about here shortly, you just never know, right? I'm over half my time on average. I'm over half my time. And to me, it's not, I'm scared of dying. It is, I'm scared of the thought that I'll never see you or the kids or our family ever again, you know? And so when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking about doing a prayer or anything. I'm just thinking about being mindful of that.
Yeah.
Every day. I appreciate you listening to me while I was talking to you about that in bed. I'm sure that was just such a fucking random conversation while I'm watching Love on the Spectrum Australia and taking in all of this positivity that show provides. And I'm like, you know, I've been thinking about dying a lot lately. Yeah, do you think about that?
Sure don't.
I'm sure that I just only can imagine what you're thinking when I roll. And I appreciate the fact that we've built a relationship that took work. That conversation took work. How easy that conversation was, where I didn't feel uncomfortable to have that conversation with you or feel like, well,
you
how
wouldn't
she
have
reacts,
been able to have that 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
No,
not
at all.
Nope.
So anyway, but yeah, that's why I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I'll say this, and whoever wrote this, thank you so much for writing it.
Absolutely.
Guess what? It's fucking okay where you are. And I just take a second when you listen to this and you're taking it in, think about everything that you've done and everything you've built in this relationship and even the bad stuff. It's okay. Like breathe out for a second because nobody's infinitely wrong.
Nope.
We're all responsible for the relationship. And guess what? It can get better. Regardless if you stay together or not, it can be better than it was.
And you may learn that,
and it's not a failure.
Absolutely not. That's what I was going to say. It's not, it may be the biggest win regardless of the outcome, whether it's you are together or you're separate and you're just trying to figure it out. No matter how it ends, you know that you're doing the right thing and where you're at and how you get there. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to do this.
I love that. Yes. And just remember,
trust yourself and your instinct and your gut, and don't ever stay in something because you feel like you have to. Like, if that's your only reason in there, there are so many resources, so much help. There will be people who will help you if you are trapped, because the more toxic and unhealthy a relationship is, then that directly feeds into you, and that creates, it's just such a bad cycle to stay in. So just focus on one thing at a time, one day at a time, and everything will be okay. And
this is just an assumption, but I assume the couple in this situation are probably trying to think that they're keeping this from their kids. Number one, if they're a little bit older, I guarantee you they're aware of what's going on, or at least can sense these changes in attitudes and behaviors towards each other. The other thing is that what if this was you and I now, when we get in an argument, or if we fire off with the kids, being transparent, I think, is such an important thing. And it doesn't mean you go into the dirty details. It means, hey, mom and dad we're having a tough time. Like, we're not, just like how your brother and sister, your brother and brother, you guys don't get along at times, and you got to figure that out and you come back together. We're doing that too. And so you're going to see sometimes we're frustrated with each other. I'm sorry about that. We're working on that. Everything's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like transparency is the best policy in a healthy way. And I think kids
we don't
will
fight
appreciate
about everything
that.
In front of our kids. No.
And if they know what's going on, or at least have a better understanding, they're not jumping to their own conclusions or getting their own anxieties created.
Right.
And it's just such a tough deal, because it's so easy to say that, but it's a balancing act. But I don't know how many times I've rifled off or yelled at the kids. I had to say that today to Seamus when we were talking about wrestling, and he had mentioned Tegan's gonna be doing her first tournament. Oh, you're gonna be cooked, which just fucking frustrated me to the just no end.
A
like
new dictionary.
For her to be going in her first tournament, and the first thing you say is like, you're going to fucking lose. Yeah. But guess what? So did you, and you're doing fine now. Like that's part of that sport for sure. Yeah. That's part of doing anything new. Right. But I was very frustrated with him. Yeah. And I owed him an apology after that. And I said, hey, I shouldn't have I'm sorry for getting mad. You know what I mean? I'll bring more to the table than just that. But I knew I just wasn't calm enough at the time. I just knew I'd fucked up in the sense of getting upset. Yeah. So, but it's okay. And guess what? Here's the other great thing. Everybody's been through this in some sort of level or form or fashion. Everybody's fucked up. Everybody's make mistakes. It is not impossible to come, or they will. Yeah. So it's okay. Absolutely. And I think that's just such a thing that people have a hard time. We always think we're alone, and we always think that we're different or doing something worse than others. We're not. Mm-hmm. We are all the same. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it is okay. But hopefully you take something from that discussion. I really appreciate the question. Please keep them coming. And it doesn't just have to be relationship questions. I actually really enjoy them because it does give us opportunities to talk about things that we've experienced. And I think it's cathartic. But at the same time, if you want to ask about going somewhere in Kansas City, if you want to ask about a movie, a book, if you want to ask about something that's going on in pop culture right now, if you want to ask about a celebrity, if you want to just ask anything in general, like the fucking laundry, Emily will be able to quiz you up on that pretty quick. And I'm going to learn. So we really greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving us that opportunity for Do We Have to have that time for Q&A. Thank you for participating in that. You did a great job. Yeah. And keep them coming, please. So dowehavето.com. If you click, submit a question to the show, it can be a comment, it can be a question. I'll make sure we put it on the air as long as it's appropriate. Right. And if there's anonymity and not being anonymous, that is no problem at all. Just make sure that if there's anything, how you want us to present that on the air, just make sure and notate that. But it was just fantastic. Such an early time in our project, our podcast, to already get a question, and be able to provide feedback and talk through that was fantastic.
We are no means.
No, we're not experts.
Professionals.
No, if we were going to talk through how we would handle it with each other. Take anything from that. Ignore anything from that. All we can do is talk off our experience. Right. We don't have a background in therapy. We've been through the therapeutic process together, and that's a really good point to make. Yeah. And we've made our mistakes in our relationships, and we've done things to try to get to a good spot. We're in a good spot right now. But that doesn't mean
may not work for somebody else.
Absolutely. So just take it for what it is.
Yes, just straight advice.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're going to talk about these things, but just keep in mind, you're talking to a 40-year-old and a late 30-year-old that are in Kansas City, Missouri, that have their own fucking set of problems that they have to do, where we feel the same fucking way you do sometimes, where I feel by myself and feel like I'm not doing a good job and I'm a failure. It's okay. Yeah. So keep that in mind. But that being said, thank you so much. Keep the questions coming. Yeah. We greatly appreciate it.
We do. And we wish you the best of luck.
Yes, absolutely. And if there's more questions, keep it. It doesn't have to be a one and done. You feel free to submit as many as you want. We'll talk about them, right?
Absolutely.
If we get to the point where we're getting tons of questions, we'll just make it its own show, and we'll have a segment. So that's the beauty of this. We can make this project anything we want. We found that we had multiple segments we want to talk about. We're just going to break it into multiple episodes. Very, very easy to do. So, and we'll continue improving and changing and making the podcast, Do We Have to, the best that it possibly can be. Now, speaking of the best possibly can be, it's interesting what we've kind of run into. You just get done with the whole political process and the presidential race and how divisive everything was. Now, what I will say, I don't think we're divisive. As a matter of fact, I think, wow, this kind of pulled us back together. But it's just an interesting time in society, an interesting time. Not that it hasn't historically. There's been things that have happened, like what had occurred earlier this month. It was in December, right? That this happened?
What?
The United Healthcare shooting.
Oh, it was earlier this week. It was earlier this week, I think.
Was it? Okay. So, and I have a timeline of this, and maybe that's probably actually where we should start. But
I didn't go down this rabbit hole the way that you did.
Well, no, I've just, watched news with Dad and tried to keep up on it. And then, of course, I just wanted to make sure, like, it's so easy because, like, you have all these posts, social media, you have all these things, like, get credible news sources, kind of get an understanding of what happened, what is happening. And then overall, like, this person's perspective, the person who shot the CEO of United Healthcare, what were their motivations, and just kind of talk through that. And again, before we get into this, just keep in mind, this is all just a married couple talking through this, like as if we'd be having a cup of coffee. This is an opinion-based podcast.
Yes.
I'll speak facts from our news sources, which are New York Times, US News, and then United Healthcare website itself. Right. So we'll go over that information. That's the factual information. Everything else you're hearing, it's opinion. So you take it for what it is. You can disagree, be frustrated, not be frustrated, agree with us. Great. But just know it's an opinion. It's not fact outside of those sources. Right. So let's talk about this. So, essentially, and, obviously, that the United Healthcare CEO got shot.
Yes. Which is very tragic and unfortunate because a man needlessly was murdered and he had a family. And
yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I will say, and I think we both agree on this. If it's possible, you would always want to avoid causing someone harm, especially physical harm, but any harm in general.
Yeah.
But what I will say, going over the numbers and things like that, the fact that we got here, is this something that is it doesn't surprise to me? No. Is there personal responsibility that needs to be taken by the people that make the 99.9% of the money and leave whatever left for us? And how, especially, here's the other thing too. We're not talking about going out and getting a McDonald's hamburger where you and I can make a choice to substitute that. Now, I know prices are prices everywhere, but you have options, right? Now you have other healthcare providers, but I think we can all agree you're limited on how you select that. So you're either selecting an individual plan where you're spending a lot of money on that as an individual, but most of us are getting our healthcare through our employee. You're not going out and making that decision. You're not going out and making that decision. You're getting the plan options associated with that provider.
Yeah.
Right. And
through your employer.
As a healthcare provider, you are doing something everybody needs. Everybody needs healthcare, whether it's maintenance or it is preventative, or it is the reactive, something's wrong and I need help.
Right.
So we're not talking about food. So this is different. To me, this is different. Being able to cause harm to people on a certain level in mass is much more different than a retail company I want to make sure we separate that. Right.
Yeah.
But with that being said, so we have the CEO of United Healthcare. They were in town for New York City they were in New York City. They were going through that process and, essentially, it looks like here. So we kind of start out in just a general timeline. We got November 24th, right? That is when they say that the suspect, the alleged suspect, he arrived in New York City on a Greyhound bus at the Port Authority terminal, right? Okay. He takes a taxi to the hostel he stayed at, which that hostel was located on 891 Amsterdam Avenue. He stays there until the morning of the shooting. So he stayed there overnight. I assume that he went through the process of actually going through the process of
figuring out where he was.
Exactly what. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I assume he knew where he was going, where he wanted to stay, and went somewhere where he could, I believe, pay in cash, and then he used a fake ID from the research that I had done. Right.
And what website is this that you're reading from?
This is, thank you for actually asking that. So this is the AP News. This is just your general Associated Press report on this. Okay. And confirmed. And then they spoke to an employee at the hostel. He briefly pulled his face mask down and smiled. That's where they said he was flirting with a girl. That's all just, to me, again, we're getting an opinion, right?
None of that.
But that's what they captured. Yeah. And that was what they used for circulation to be able to kind of identify. And that's what ultimately led to, and I'll get to it in a second, the employee at McDonald's catching him in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Got it.
So then on the 29th, so this happened. And then it says the 29th, the man checked out of the hostel where guests are automatically checked out if they don't show at the desk at a certain time. Police believe he stayed someplace else and checked back into the same hostel the next day.
Okay.
December 4th, the suspect shooter leaves the hostel well before dawn. So this was the day of the shooting on December 4th.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Wow. So he was in there for.
Yeah, it sounds like he was in there multiple days. If this is all accurate, so it's an interesting timeline because they were kind of like, oh, he stayed there till the morning of the shooting, which sounds like he did. So, but this is at 5:41 a.m. He appears on the 54th Street and 6th Avenue, walking back and forth in the area of the Hilton Hotel. So waiting, so obviously he knew that where the gentleman was staying.
Yeah.
He obviously had vetted all that out. He was out there waiting for him. The United Health Group, they were holding its annual investor conference. So I feel like a lot of this is,
so there's like a whole bunch of like people from United Healthcare.
And they're also talking about their financials, which I'll talk about their financials in a little bit. I do, obviously that's a huge motivating factor. I believe, and this is opinion, I believe in what had happened, right? With this gentleman. And of course they're there to basically announce to their investors, which again, if you're like going down that road, well, right. But what a lot of people, or a lot of the narrative is that what you care about is your investors. The bottom line and how it affects shareholder prices is ultimately what's going to drive our decisions. It is not the people, and it's not taking care of people. And that's fine because it's a business. But again, then we're talking about, should a privatized business be the ones in charge of people's healthcare, right? So again, so I see where this is all, this is, I see where this buildup is happening. Yeah. So it sounds all very insanely premeditated, right? We're expecting a specific date, a specific event, and a specific place where we know we can get to this person, but also they're doing something that the news that when it gets out could have an effect on the company.
Right.
Right. Absolutely. So he's out walking around, right? Police deduced that he rode a bicycle to the Hilton because it took him such a short time to get there. I think they've showed video of him being on a bicycle. So
there's a video of him.
It says they're still looking into at the time of this article, but
the gentleman is coming out of the door and you see the suspect in the same frame from the photo of the security camera. Mm-hmm. And he starts shooting.
Oh, right. No, they're talking about how quickly he got there. They're just deducing.
Okay. I was like,
they're just saying based on how quick he got there from where he was at the hostel, they're assuming he rode a bicycle. And now you can ride, just like in Kansas City, you can rent bicycles and those sorts of things.
Oh, yeah.
How he did that though, without leaving any type of paper trail, I don't know, maybe if it was just a cash thing, but usually you have to have, anyway, that's a rabbit hole thing. So at some point he went to a nearby Starbucks, purchased a bottle of water and at least one energy bar before returning to the hotel. So he's literally waiting out there, pacing back and forth for the most part for about an hour, waiting for this gentleman to leave the hotel.
Yeah.
At 6:44, at some point, the gentleman must have come out. Our CEO of United Healthcare had come out. Mr. Thompson, he shoots him as the executive arrives alone on foot over to this deal. He walked from a hotel across the street, and then the gentleman left. Yeah. 6:48, so quickly got over to Central Park by bicycle at the 60th Street Center and Drive entrance. It's in the park and away from security cameras. The police believe he discards. And I've heard multiple people. You and I've been to New York one time. I don't know if you've been other than when we went. We didn't get to go to Central Park. But man, I tell you what, from what everybody's saying, it's like if you want to go somewhere and disappear, you go through Central Park. So obviously this guy has done some homework of these sorts of things.
Well, he's been in New York for a while. So he clearly knows where to go.
Yeah. At 6:58 a.m., he passes on another camera on 85th Street and Columbus Avenue, still on bicycle. At 7 a.m., he's on 86th Street, no longer with the bicycle. So he dropped the bicycle within that 2-minute period of time. 7:04 a.m., and again, this is on December 4th, he enters a taxi northbound at 86th Street, Amsterdam Avenue. 7:30 a.m., he's near George Washington Bridge and the bus terminal there. It offers commuter service to New Jersey and a Greyhound routes to Philadelphia, Boston, and Washington. So after the attack, investigator found the words delay, deny, and depose written in a permanent marker on ammunition at the scene, meaning the shell casings from the bullets. And I think that was like something that was like the big headline thing, right?
Well, it's the title of a book.
I know, I understand. And which is kind of takes a deep dive into healthcare and how essentially their way of maximizing profits and doing business is really to make sure that they not only deny as much as they can, but really making sure they're denying the folks that are what I think they deem as regular offenders or people that are unhealthy that really, I'm just hearing back a synopsis as far as my understanding of it, right? Okay. Yeah, we have not read the book, but essentially kind of deny those people that they deem really aren't the type of clientele they want, which are people that have long-term chronic illness that needs to be treated over long periods of time and costs them a lot of money, which again, then affects their bottom line, which then affects their price shares. Right. So
yeah, pre-existing conditions, I think is what the term that they use.
And this, not only is it part of the book, but it is general industry words that are used, right? And in the insurance industry, especially among their critics.
Right.
So all very common to narrative and theme here, right? And then we move to, he kind of disappears for a little bit. They're obviously looking for him. I know they mentioned multiple times on the news that they had leads leading up to that Friday. Now on December 6th, which was that Friday, Kenny and Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, forgive me if I messed that name up, revealed the investigators believe the gunman left New York on a bus. Investigators say he entered the George Washington Bridge bus station, but have not found video of him leaving or getting on a bus. It could possibly be a disgruntled employee or disgruntled client. Kenny says a possible motive of the breeding. It's interesting because it's like, really? I mean, I know you have to be so vague in general, but you don't fucking think this is somebody who got fucked over by the healthcare insurance provider?
In some aspect or another, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, yeah, it could be an employee too that maybe had to deal with doing these things or that, but, or work there. And then we all have insurance. It doesn't matter. You work at a United Healthcare Insurance. Again, opinion. I'm sure you're dealing with these similar things too. You just have an intimate knowledge of it in certain aspects, depending on where you work in the company.
Right.
Yeah. Police find what they say is the man's backpack. Its contents are not disclosed, but we do eventually find out that allegedly it had Monopoly money in it.
Right. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that kind of leads up to what occurred yesterday, which is gentleman was in Altoona, Pennsylvania in a McDonald's. Somebody sees him and they essentially call the police. They grab him. All of a sudden on the news, he's a person of interest. And it is one of those things where as it's going more and more, I say allegedly, it seems like that is definitely the person who had done this. Especially there was video of him yesterday yelling about essentially kind of fooling the American citizens or basically keeping the American citizens in the dark, but they kind of pulled him away and grabbed him roughly really quick and pulled him in.
Nobody needs to listen to him, in my opinion.
Yeah. Can I sidebar really quick? Though?
Yeah.
So just a quick sidebar. How fucking funny was it, that fake Twitter post? And when I say funny, it's not being, I very much care about what happened. Obviously somebody lost their life in this, but at the same time, we're all ingesting this. We've all been through hell. Every once in a while, getting a chuckle that isn't really actually somebody causing harm. It's somebody posting something. Anyway, take it for what it is, please. But the funny thing is that we were looking through last night and somebody had posted, of course, it's a fake post pretending to be Burger King's Twitter, but that said, we don't snitch.
Yeah.
Associating with McDonald's, which it was very clever and very funny.
However,
but to the point, we've gone through this timeline, but when they initially announced that, I'm trying to remember if it was CNN, what the post was, but there was 60,000 responses. And I think it was like 57,000 of those responses.
Yeah, it was high.
Were basically like a positive reaction to this CEO getting
which is very
arrested.
Unfortunate.
Yes.
Not arrested. Not
arrested. I mean, shot. I'm sorry. CEO getting shot. And then the other ones were still not necessarily like overly sympathetic or empathetic towards the CEO. It was just more of, just a general response.
Right.
So it didn't seem like there was a ton of outrage. It didn't seem like whether you were left or sitting on the right, as far as the political spectrum or in your beliefs, as far as government goes, that you didn't disagree with it, that healthcare is a huge issue, that it seems to be in very excess as far as the amount of profit they make.
Right.
On top of the fact that they're constantly seem to be difficult to deal with when it comes to your actual own healthcare.
Right.
Right. So with that
even
being
Minnie's
said,
mad.
Yeah, I know she is upset. But with that being said, so the overall outcry from the public was more of, in some cases, jubilation, fuck around and find out. You saw all these social media posts, which is crazy to me. It's not crazy. It's not crazy you feel that way, I guess. Everybody's entitled to feel how they feel.
Yeah.
It's just that I think it's more of a statement of not directly about the individual, but directly about where we're at from a societal standpoint.
Right. And I think, I don't know how to say it. It's just, I wasn't surprised at what occurred based on all the information that has since come out. But this one man is not alone responsible for all of it.
No.
So there's a whole bigger picture that needs to be discussed. And unfortunately, I don't know how much will get help or talked about, or maybe this is the thing to like set it in motion and get it all talked about. But I still don't think this one person was the problem.
Completely agree. However, here's what I'll say.
Because he's not going to be like, that one person wasn't going to be the one to change it and fix it in the first place. Yeah,
but there's something said for you take the responsibility of running a company like that.
Yeah.
And you take the responsibility of running a company like that. Do you mind letting her out?
Yeah.
And again, in just classic do we have to fashion, right? I think we should have an interruption in every show, but I'll keep speaking to this. And I'm loud enough that you'll be able to hear this, so you can feel free. But if you could just let her outside, I would greatly appreciate that. But what I will say to that is there's this personal responsibility of, the job you're taking on. And I'll kind of read out some statistics here. And I know you and I had already talked about this. But for example, on the United Healthcare website, right? On the United Healthcare website, you can get all their financials. So I'd highly recommend, don't just take my word for it. It is just take it for what it is, in the sense of they have to report on these things. Definitely go look at it. But I'll read it to the best I can. Cause they do put it in like a smaller number format. But when I'm talking about these things, we're talking about in the billions, right? So at the end of the year in 2022, okay, so you're talking about the net profit that they got. So this means you're talking about the revenue, you're talking about, so their earnings themselves, and then you're talking about your operating costs and all those sorts of things and how that nets out, right? So at the end of 2022, you're talking about $23 billion. Okay. At the end of 2023, you're talking about $25 billion. Mm-hmm. And so that's after it's all said and done. So you're talking about all your payouts, and then all your operating costs, cost of your buildings, cost of employees, cost of keeping lights on. You're making $25 billion. Okay.
Yeah, you're profiting that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Okay. You're up almost every year. Year end for total, from the year before, you're outperforming every year. So 2022 to 2023. And you are the CEO. And I believe he roughly, and forgive me because I'm having trouble finding it. And because I don't think this one's specific. This is more company based.
They don't give his salary.
Correct. So, but I think they have to report on it. I just didn't grab it individually, but I think it was after bonuses over $10 million. Okay. Mm-hmm. $10 million.
I think it was higher than that, but
10 point something. I think it was roughly, let's just say 10 million for those purposes, $10 million. It's an excessive salary, and it's an excessive amount of profit. And now they don't report on this specifically, but they did some questionnaires, polls, those sorts of things. They found that roughly about close to 30% of the time, they're seeing denials from United Healthcare, which is one of the top two, if not the top.
I think Aetna is the other one that's like really high.
Okay. And so again, take it for what it is, because I don't have the specific statistics in front of me, but there's a narrative here. Not only are they profiting the most, they're denying the most. Mm-hmm. And, when you read about this kid, and I think his name's Luigi, right? Forgive me.
I think so. Yeah.
So Luigi, that gentleman, forgive me for not getting the name proper if I didn't, but I believe it's Luigi. There was a manifesto that was supposedly found. So this is where it's like, now you were getting into super alleged, don't even know if it's them, but I know their dad even sent me a video of it, but there's videos everywhere of people reading this manifesto. Yeah. And most of the responses is like in just complete agreement, but essentially I'm not going to read it. But to essentially paraphrase what it was, or give a summary, essentially his mom dealt with what it sounds like neuropathy. If anybody knows what that is, but it's essentially your nerve endings are dying in a certain part of your body. My grandfather had it. Both of his legs, eventually he said it always felt like he was standing on pins and needles, and it caused him a ton of pain on a good day, and it was debilitating on others. Your dad was dealing with it, right? Mm-hmm. Because of health things he's dealing with. So like, we have family members that have dealt with it, and it is not a pleasant experience. And it was something that she had been dealing with over a prolonged period of time. It was a chronic illness. It took multiple different doctor visits and different types of tests to figure out what it was. And I know they kind of went back and forth with that.
Mm-hmm.
But as it became very apparent that this was going to be something that his mother was going to have to deal with for an extended period of time, it seemed when that was the difficulty of going through the insurance process seemed to really pick up.
Yeah.
And so to me, the narrative that I'm picking up is that, hey, as soon as this was a regular thing that we knew we had to go to the doctor for all the time and it wasn't just preventative, all of a sudden now we have to jump through 20 million hoops just to get her to a point where she can be comfortable.
Right.
Right. And then there was thrown in at the end that he had sustained some sort of back injury. And I don't know if that's been confirmed or not, but he may have a steel plate and some screws in his back. But I'm not 100% on that. But anyway, so he started going through that himself and he just saw this cycle of this happening again and again, it seems like. And he decided that in his mind, he associated with the Second Amendment, the right to protect himself and his family. And he felt like this specific entity, being United Healthcare, was infringing on him and causing him harm, which I don't disagree. And he took action in a way that the majority of people would not. And unfortunately, it ended somebody's life.
Right. So
again, I don't think either one of us are condoning doing that.
God, no.
I just have the hardest time, though, where I do have, I'm going to be honest, I do have a hard time feeling an intense amount of sympathy for a person who took on a role knowing what the business objective is of that role, which is to maximize profit, maximize shareholder value, take a $10 million salary, knowing, and he did know, I believe, this is opinion.
There's no way they don't know.
I know he knows. I know he knew. And I know any other healthcare worker or CEO or whatever, you know what the business strategy of the business you're in is. And while I will say the fact that we as a country allowed privatized healthcare to be the business that is what helps us take care of our families and our loved ones. And I think left and right, we all disagree with it, like as being the long-term solution, but that is our solution.
Right.
They knew the role they were taking on. And the world we live in, with as divisive as it is, and as much as information gets around, you're going to have people that are upset. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I think this is just going to be one of those things. If you're not seeing systematic change, which is something they don't want, you're going to see violent reaction. That's my take on it. It might be a hot take, but that's my take. I'm not condoning it.
No,
I'm not saying that it would be what I would do. But I do think that person took a job and a responsibility and was a part of a large entity that has potentially caused harm to a lot of people. And it's a healthcare system that I think we all agree on as a country does not work. What do you think? You can disagree. You know, we disagree on opinion all the time. That's not what this is about.
I don't disagree. I really don't think this is going to get any answers.
No, I agree. I think that's absolutely correct.
I think this was this one.
Although the snack wrap's
very. God.
Obviously, we don't know the timing of that or when it's brought back, but it's very funny, the videos that have come in.
This gentleman took a job. I'm sure he's worked very hard. He's providing for his family.
Yep.
Does he need $10 million a year? No. Does anyone? No. Nope. But if you and I were given $10 million, I mean.
Yeah, we would take it.
Yeah. But I wouldn't consider that selling my soul. I mean.
There's a difference. So when people are forced to have to purchase something or forced to have to go it just to get their daily care versus, for example, going and buying a burger.
I've worked for a healthcare organization.
You've worked for a hospital.
And our health insurance through them was still not.
Because it's a health insurance provider. It's not the hospital. Again, you got to separate those two out because it is two different things. I mean, I assume doctors obviously could speak on this much more eloquently than me, but if you look at the history of like why things are priced they are, why a Tylenol is $40, it's because originally, from my understanding, originally, these things would be priced out normally and insurance just wouldn't pay for them. We're not going to pay $2 for an aspirin. So then they raise it to $40 to make sure that their operating costs and their margins are being accommodated.
Yeah, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be paid.
Insurance, right? Yeah. But it's the insurance companies that are creating this type of insanely overpriced, unhealthy, bloated healthcare system that profits off of not taking care of people. And it's not like they're hurting and saying, hey, we got this going in. We've got this much going out. We're a business. I think everybody, that's a much easier pill to swallow. That's not what's happening here. It is, we're making record profits every year. Meanwhile, prices, inflation, cost of living, everything's going up. Diseases, because of our food and our environment, our chronic diseases are increasing. But we're going to continually retract on helping. Matter of fact, our business model is predicated on not doing that. If you're a just a maintenance you're in maintenance mode, you're just getting your annual checkups, we love you. Mm-hmm. That's in my mind, that's how I see it. Again, this is opinion. We love you. You're absolutely fine. We'll take care of you till the end of time. But as soon as you cross that line and you get cancer and you get something that is going to cost a lot of money, then they're looking and they're checking and they're concerned and they make it more difficult. And part of that is to be fair, part of that is checks and balances of major purchases, but also part of it is it's a business strategy. I truly believe that. Again, opinion, but I do truly believe that. And when you are heading that up, you're taking on the responsibility of navigating those waters in the best way possible, not only for the people that pay you and you keep the lights on, but for yourself and then for the people that buy the product.
Right.
So there's risk associated with that. If you're going to get paid $10 million, you're taking on a risk that somebody that makes $100,000 shouldn't have to take on. And so that's part of it. So that's where it's like, I have a hard time being sympathetic. Like, oh my gosh, this guy is just a victim here. We all make choices that bring us to the roads that we drive on, and our ultimate destinations. And I'm not saying he deserved that. I'm just saying there's decisions that get us there. Just like in relationships, the decisions we make ultimately define what we become as a couple and as individuals. So we have to fucking own that responsibility. Yeah. So those motherfuckers do too. I just think
if you truly wanted systematic change, there's more.
How do you do it? And I'm not saying you're right. I don't think it's causing any change. But how do you get heard? How do you get heard? You go through your politician. What does that do? They don't even listen to you. It doesn't matter. I vote Democrat. It don't matter. They don't listen. They do what they want to do. And people still, and it's on us too, because we still vote them in. But from a change perspective, everything is designed around us to prevent us from changing. It is to keep status quo. So I completely understand a young kid who's going through his own health issues and had to watch his mom suffer, if that's all correct, ultimately leading to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't condone it. I don't think that was the right action. But I also don't think if he went to all the right thoughts, we're not ever talking about him. And he's just another number in a line of people that unfortunately have been, in my opinion, taken advantage of for the bottom line. So I don't know. I don't know what the right call is.
I don't either. I know that
it's not killing somebody, but people getting in trouble for irresponsible business practices, healthcare in general, these are things we have to talk about. But until somebody's willing to actually have these conversations and lead them from a leadership perspective, from a service perspective, which I put on our politicians on the left and the right, these things are going to continue happening. So that shit's on your guys' hands. I will say, I mean, and again, like I said, you and I, we talked about the presidential election. We voted Democrat. You're both responsible. Like, you want to talk about responsibility? You want somebody to be responsible for this? It's you all. You people that are politicians, local, state, and federal, you guys prevent these things from happening because you can't fucking figure out how to interact with each other, get along, and create beneficial legislature that actually benefits the American people. If anybody's responsible for Luigi and for United Healthcare and what's happening, it's you all, in my opinion. So sympathies go out to the family, obviously, and that sort of thing. Tragic deal.
Very unnecessary.
And it's a heated topic. So again, like I said, guys, I'll rifle off. It's opinion, right? But there's a lot behind it. And being a couple, navigating with all the things we've had to do with our kids from a mental health, a physical health perspective, they've had to have surgeries. They go to counseling. The ability to even get a kid in counseling these days is fucking atrocious. And you should all be ashamed. Like, people that are associated with the insurance that write the rules for that and deem how those things work, you should be ashamed of yourselves. And I understand the frustration. I really do. I just think we've got to be harder on the people that actually enact change. Mm-hmm. Stop just fucking blindly voting for people just because they kind of agree with 3 fucking topics that you have. How about you make sure that these people are actually going to adhere to why you're voting for them, and they're actually going to go. They're not going to just go off and do their own thing after you elect them. And if they do that, fucking send them home. Because all of these guys, left and right, Democratic and Republican, they all go into politics. They all come out much more wealthier. And it ain't because of their fucking salary. It's because the people that are in charge, which are really corporations and businesses and lobbyists, pay for their vote. Mm-hmm. And then if we keep voting them in, that's on us. So we share the responsibility with the people that are representing us for what happened, in my opinion. Sorry, I didn't mean to get heated there. I tell you what, it's so funny, isn't it? Like, you plan on having these conversations, but
somebody
you just work
pissed in your
yourself
Cheerios.
Up. I know. But I don't know. Was there anything more you wanted to talk about on the topic itself? I mean, obviously the guy's in custody. Let it go through that it'll go through that process, and hopefully we'll get to learn more.
I'm interested to read the book that was mentioned. The
Deny, Defend, Oppose, or whatever. And sorry if I messed that up, but yeah.
And then also the one that we talked about with our chosen family over the weekend about the economical hitman.
Oh, one. Okay. Economic kickman. Okay.
So I've got both of those on my.
We'll put those on the website too when we get the overview for the episode.
I don't know enough about. I know what healthcare does for me and what it doesn't do for me because I have a lot of health issues. But I know the basics of it. So I can't talk to, the numbers and
I think that's a lot of people. A lot of people just see the outcomes.
And we have the insurance company that we have because it's, the option we were given. Our only other option would be to pay for it, out of pocket by ourselves with, through Obamacare or whatever, which even then I don't know what that would do. I don't think there's one better insurance company than another. I think they all do the same thing. They're all going to say yes or no to the same things. The little bit that I've worked with insurance companies, having to get something approved for
it's a fucking process, right?
It's a nightmare.
Part of it is, there's got to be due diligence. You want to make sure nobody's taking advantage of things,
right?
But do you get the sense, just the opinion? Do you get the sense, though, also there is any type of design or method to it to where you want to elongate having to pay something out as long as possible?
Absolutely. Okay. So like, the organization I worked for, which I'm not going to say on. No,
you don't need to. And you don't work there for them anymore. So go ahead.
But, I would take things that patients would need and I would try to get the insurance company to approve it before they could have the procedure or the test or whatever. Well, so much of it gets denied and gets come back, and then they need this and they need that. And there's like a whole checklist of things that the insurance company will ask for. And then they'll come back and they'll say, well, we need this done first before we do this. And like, there's a lot of hoops to go through to get something done. It's not just a simple click of the button, unfortunately. And these people are needing things done very quickly in order to help them. And it's not, the insurance companies just aren't designed to do that. They're not designed to work that way in the experience that I have had.
And that makes sense. And I think that's part of the problem. We got to look at systematically how those things work, or those processes, to make them as efficient as possible. But then also we got to make sure that the general American public's not being taken advantage of for something they have to have, and you have to be taken care of by a doctor. Right. You have to be able to get your checks and those things done, but you also deserve to be taken care of. In this country, it's one of the richest countries in the world. You deserve to be taken care of if you're a productive, functioning citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's show. I really appreciate you taking the time, Em, and I appreciate the audience for listening. We actually have this recorded, right? So this is going to be on the YouTube channel, or you're watching it right now on the YouTube channel. So that's exciting. And we're using the wonderful iPhone 16s, which of course Apple doesn't sponsor or give us anything, but we do use them. So if you're doing a podcast or if you're doing a fake podcast for the, relationship building, use the iPhone 16. Reference to a past show.
Yeah.
You like that? We're there. We've had so many episodes now. I referenced a past show.
Yeah.
But again, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back hopefully with the here shortly with the Bridgerton sex expose that we'll be doing. And then of course, be on the lookout as well for our episode on Dark Matter, the TV show and the book for our book club, and our Renegade coffee that we went out and enjoyed in the Kansas City area, which I absolutely loved. And I know you did too.
We did.
So again, dowehavето.com is our website. It'll take you to all the various providers that offer the show. So Buzzsprout, of course, hosts our show. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, of course, our YouTube channel, anything that you can possibly get your content. We typically have it provided out there. If there's something out there that we aren't providing it on,
and an Instagram.
If there is anything out there that we haven't provided the content on, let us know. And then, of course, yes, on social media now, we're on Facebook. We're going to be adding our Instagram profile to our website as well.
Yeah.
And we do have a TikTok. So now that we'll be eventually getting into TikTok. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
So everybody have a great day. Be safe. Be kind to yourselves and have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Wake up, I'm about to shake up every little thing, show you all that we can be. Come dance in my club.